TorahCafe.com. For thousands of years, Jews have cried out in heartfelt prayer, praising God, affirming His oneness, and beseeching Him, requesting personal needs and communal, asking for health, sustenance, and peace. We ask God to improve our lot. But if He is all-knowing, isn't He already aware of our plight? So, why must we inform Him? In fact, didn't God inflict these circumstances on us in the first place? If this is the case, how could we ask God to change His mind? We now turn to Rabbi Immanuel Schochet, Rabbi of Congregation Beth Joseph, and Professor Emeritus of Philosophy at Humber College, who will challenge the basis of prayer in the Jewish tradition.
When it comes to praying the way we take it, like in this fellow, or the way we have it in the conventional usage, where indeed, even though if you look carefully at the Siddur, the Jewish prayer book, you'll note that that which we call Tefila, prayer, which has the meaning of requesting and beseeching God, is really what we call the Shemona Esrei, the Amidah. That's where we make personal requests. If you look at any of the other prayers, nothing there. 3/4 of the morning prayer, what is 3/4? 90% of Shachis. First is the part called Karbonos, which we call the temple service, which you no longer have, kind of beseeching God to restore it. Fine. Then you have what is called Psuke de Zimor, the verses of praise. All they are is different verses of praise to God, mostly from the book of Psalms and from various other sources. Then we get to, that part is finished, it's Kaddish, Bochu, you get into what we call the Bichas Kriyas Shema, the blessings before the Shema is recited. What are they talking about? They're talking about the upper regions, the angels, how they sing before God, and how they recognize God, and how they praise God, and for all the wonders, etc., etc. And after all that, then comes one which has a bit of a prayer content, Avas Olam, in which, but a purely religious context. God, yes, you loved us, taken us as your chosen people, you have given us the Torah, all these special favors that you become, and all we're asking in that particular blessing is, please open our hearts to the Torah, that we should be able to study it, that we should be able to understand it, that we should be able to worship you the ideal way. Which again is not making the personal request that you're really looking for. And after that, we move into the Shema. Shema is not a prayer at all. Shema has nothing whatsoever to do with praying. People think this is the ultimate prayer. No, it's not a prayer. Shema is simply an affirmation of the faith. Whether you pray or you do not pray, every day we must recite the Shema. In the morning and at night. As we say in the Shema, when you lie down to sleep and when you get up in the morning. And all the Shemais is simply saying, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, Hear Israel, Hashem is our God, Hashem is one, and you shall love Hashem your God, etc., etc. And the second part, which is about talking about the consequences to your actions, remember that, and so forth. That's nothing to do with prayer. It's simply an affirmation of the fundamental principles of the Jewish faith, that we have to acknowledge every day, daytime and nighttime. Then comes again a part that follows after the Shema, which has, again, acknowledging the miracles that God has performed for us, the exodus from Egypt and what have you. Then we get into the meat and the potatoes, the Amidah. And even the Amidah has 3 components. There are the first 19 blessings. There are the first 3, the last 3, and those in between. The first 3 are basically just praising God. That's all, praising God. The last 3, again, thanking God for everything. And our personal requests, we really submit only in the intermediate ones. And even there's a certain order. First asking, give me simply the intelligence. If you pray and you stand before God, you have to know what does it mean to stand before God? What do you pray for, etc., etc. Then before I approach God, I'm sorry for all the things I did wrong. And then we start asking for healing, for parnosa, for making a livelihood, all the possible things that a person could possibly ask for. So there's a whole procedure there before, the whole procedure after, which is far removed from it. But then again comes to the crux, where we ask for the things that we want. Now, when you ask for something, it's obviously because you feel you need it. Right? Otherwise, why would you ask for it? Or you think you need it. You actually need it or not, it's a different story. But you think you need it, or think you would like to have it. Everybody wants to win the jackpot in Powerball. Whether you need it or not, whether it's going to be to your benefit or not, who cares? Give it to me. We'll worry about it later. I've done statistical studies about people who win the jackpots in lotteries. And I found out that about 30-40% a year later cursed the day that they won. They've never been in so much trouble. On the one hand, they never knew that so many relatives and friends. She suddenly came out of the woodworks and so forth. First, initially, that's very nice to know, until, of course, they say, well, since you are this long-lost cousin, etc., so how about showing on your part? I showed you that I'm related to you. Now you showed to me that I'm related to you. Making investments and other things that occurs the day that it is. So just winning the jackpot does not necessarily mean it's really going to solve your problems. Far from it. But still we ask for these things. In our mind, in our imagination at least, I would like this, I would like this. The same as a kid going through a candy store. I would like all these things there. Start thinking for a moment. When I start praying to God, what am I doing? I'm approaching God because God is the creator. God is the sustainer. God is He's the all-powerful being. Everything comes from God. Everything depends on God. God knows everything. There is such a thing as divine providence, in which there is full consciousness of God of every one of his creatures that are in this world. As opposed to those who had the previous session, to deism, where they say God, he has created the world, but he has nothing to do with the world. Comes religion, theism, yes, God is very much involved with the world. With every little detail. Hashgocha potis. The way the Baal Shem Tov used to teach, that even if a blade of grass moves, that wind somehow blows it, that's also divine providence. He once took his students to give them an example, a demonstration of how divine providence works. He took them for a walk outside the little town of Mesibush. And as he came there, it was a soft, gentle wind blowing. And he stood there for a while, and then a leaf fell off a tree. A wind had blown off a leaf from the tree. And as the leaf fell to the ground, Hashem said, look at this leaf now. They looked at it. It was soon a little other bit of wind, and blew that leaf a bit further away, and then still further away, and they followed it, and the leaf came to rest at a certain place. And after about 5-10 minutes, came a little worm or other insect, and started eating that leaf over there. And then the worm moved on elsewhere. So the Baal Shem Tov said to his students, he says, you see, for all you know, this tree has been standing here for who knows how many years. And this tree has grown who knows how many thousands or perhaps millions of leaves in the course of time. Because that's what trees do. And maybe the whole purpose of all this pre-existence was just to produce this one leaf here. You can't just produce one leaf in isolation. Then you have all these winds, and it had to come to pass that these winds will break off this leaf and bring it down to the ground here, and then move it to this particular place, so that that insect over there would find its food there and then. And now this insect is moving on to fulfill its mission, and so forth. So we may not see the divine providence in every detail, because the whole thing is one big organism. And it all works in conjunction with everything else together. So once I recognize this is how God works, God is involved with literally everything, then surely God must know that I exist. Especially the human being, the crown of creation. And if God knows that I exist, surely God must know who I am, what are my conditions, what are my circumstances. And then surely God knows what I want and what I do not want. What pleases me, what does not please me. What in my present condition is agreeable to me and what is not agreeable to me. I don't feel well. I've been plagued by this and I've been plagued by that for the longest time. The doctors can't find anything. You're a hypochondriac, you're this and that. They keep just prescribing the pills, etc., etc. Surely, God, if I come now and ask God, please have faith. Didn't God know before? And if God knew before, why do I have to inform him? If God didn't know before, what's the point of talking to him? What's the point of talking to him? What can he do for me? And not only he must have known before, and obviously he didn't do anything about it. So he must have had a reason for not doing anything about it. So who do you think you are? You now come before God, and you start telling, hey God, I'm sure you know, I'm sure this and that, but you know the reality is, it's a nuisance to me, it's aggravating me, it's irritating me. Please take it away. Do you really believe in God? If you really believe in God, then you accept what God does. Either you believe in God, you believe in Divine Providence, or you don't. And either you believe that God is this all-powerful, all-knowing being, or you don't. If he is, you have nothing to say. What's the point of even articulating my praise? Can't God read my mind? I know people can. My wife can read my mind. Then surely God can read my mind. So, if God can't, I'm going to look for another one. If you really, and moreover, if you are in a certain condition, it's not only that you happen to be in that certain particular predicament, but if there is divine providence, then surely God must have brought this about for whatever reason and whatever purpose. And now you have the nerve, and you appear before God and say, hey God, excuse me, but you made a mistake. You picked the wrong guy. And you did the wrong thing here. You're going to teach God how to run his business. That's basically what prayer is all about. There were 3 disciples of the Maggid of Mezrich. I spoke about before, the disciple and the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, who founded the Hasidic movement. And they once sat together philosophizing and considering, what would I do if I were God? And one of them said, if I were God, I would get rid of disease and sickness and illness and suffering. For one thing, it presents so many problems to people. People lose their faith because of it. How can there be a benevolent God who is called HaToif VeHaMeitiv, who is good, he's also benevolent. He only seeks the good. En ra yored milmaylo, evil does not come from above. You cannot identify anything bad or evil with God. You may not recognize it, but sometimes bad things are good things. Anybody of you like suffering or pain? Anybody here like suffering or pain? None of you. Come on, you're lying. You love it. You're all a bunch of masochists. Not only do you love it, you sometimes go looking for it. Not only you go looking for it, you even hire people to inflict pain upon you. Don't remember you did last time? I saw you. I was the one who hit you. When you go to the dentist, you beg, please give me a root canal. Please start drilling. You can hear you block away. And at the end, thank you, doctor. Thank you. How much do I owe you? Insanity. Or like us go to the doctor and he prescribes an operation for you. You know, it's going to lay you up in bed for weeks, months. Nothing can do. You have to hobble around there on the crutches and who knows what else. And there again, oh, thank you so much. I'm paying you for it. Which means pain doesn't really disturb you. There's nothing wrong with pain. Pain is not a reality. Pain is all up there. It's all in the head. It's all illusion. Remember that next time I punch you. It's all illusion. Is it? In a sense, yes, it is. Because there where the pain makes sense, where the pain serves a purpose, where you see something coming out of it, you don't mind to suffer the pain. You even go looking for it, you beg for it, and you pay for it. When you really get frustrated, not from your physical suffering, you get frustrated from not knowing what the suffering is about. Because in life, in reality is not a television. On television you see commercials, they advertise products, and they tell you that's what you look like before you used our cream. And look what you're going to look like after you use our cream. You see the before and after. Oh, now I know what it's about. So you're willing to throw out your money like this. You're very frugal. And you're very careful with whatever you spend. Here you're willing to spend a fortune on it. You order it. You get 30 days for free if you order 6 months in advance, etc., etc. You don't look at price because I saw on television what I'm going to look like. Once you know what you're going to look like and you really believe it and so forth, hey, the loss of money and all that, the suffering, the pain, means nothing. It's worth it, more than worth it. But in real life, it's not a television commercial. We don't see that. And therefore, people go nuts. Why? Why do these things happen? The old question, why do bad things happen to good people? My simple retort to that is usually my simple answer, without going into the lecture. Who says they're bad things and who says they're good people? You first have to define your terms before you can ask the question. But that's for another time. So the first disciple said, I would get rid of pain and frustration of suffering in this world. Because suffering does present a serious problem. All the philosophical and scientific challenges to religion are nothing. Are literally nothing. I have no problem with any of them whatsoever. The one challenge that really stands is the challenge of pain and suffering in this world. How can a benevolent God allow it? And that's why all theologians, religious philosophers have struggled with that problem. In the Bible, we have a whole book dealing with that problem, and a big book. It's called the Book of Job. It's a problem that frustrated Moses. And when Moses saw it as a very favorable moment that God is willing to grant him anything, he says, Moshe, what do you want? I want only one thing. Please show me your ways. What is your program? How do you work things? Why is it that the wicked prosper and the righteous suffer? It frustrates me. I want to know what it is. And what was God's answer? Sorry, my friend, you asked too much. No living human being is able to understand that. Because living human beings live in the here and now. In the here and now, you see what is here and now. You cannot calculate or take into serious consideration what's going to be after, or what was before, put it in the whole context. After death, when you are beyond time, beyond space, now you get a total picture, the total perspective, then you'll be able to see it. But for as long as you're alive, it's impossible. So he says, but that also leads many people to lose their faith. There are many people who went to Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen who found God there. Never had God before, but there they saw miracles. They found God. But there are many more people who went to Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen who lost God, who were raised and brought up that way, fully as religious as you can imagine. And you know what? I don't blame a single one of them. I will question you if you say you don't believe in God. Where do you come from? What grounds? But those who went through that, I don't blame one single person. I don't know how I would have acted. I don't know how I would have come out from there. So we can all very well understand that. And therefore he said, I would get rid of that. Okay. Then the second one started. He says, if I were God, I would get rid of poverty. It's a similar answer really to the first one, because poverty is also basically so many people have nothing, and they have to worry about surviving, not just for themselves, they have a wife, children, what have you. And the Talmud already says, Anius maveres es ha'odem al daito. Anius, poverty, drives people literally crazy to makes them do things which they would normally never do. So then they will be able to live like a mensch, a normal life. The third one, who happened to be Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, the founder of Chabad, he said, if I were God, what would I do? I would run the world exactly the way it is being run right now. I would not change one iota. What do you mean by that? Weren't the other two right? Yes, on the instinctive level, the other two are right. But in effect, what you're saying is, if I'm going to change this and I'm going to change that, what you're saying in effect is, I'm smarter than God. I know better than God. I have a better system, a better plan. I can teach God something. Isn't that absurd? Isn't that a contradiction in terms? But isn't that exactly what we do when we pray? And then some of us are even very nice. We really want our prayers to be effective. So before prayer, what we do, there's a pushka standing there. Oh, yes, sure, no problem. God, I need something. I need a big favor from God. Let me see, I have a $1 bill here, $10 bill, and so forth. And the more you put into the pushka, of course, greater chance to create this funnel to bring all these blessings down. That's called, what is it called? Bribery, exactly. So let's spell it out. Some people are scared to say it, but you're not scared. Yeah, you're my type. Good. It's called bribery. And then, of course, some give a nickel. I don't need too much today. You don't have to give to the poor. Another one puts in a $1 bill, a $10 bill, $100, something a really big need, something, never mind, you have a tile coming up, make a real big contribution, and please say Mishaberach for me, etc., etc., say some extra tilim for me, and so forth. What kind of a God would accept bribery? Is that the God you really want to worship? Is that the God you really want to pray to? Especially, let's say we have a trial. He's suing me. So before the trial, I put in a $100 bill. But I don't know how much he's going to put in. He may be $200 bills. So then God is obviously going to be on his side. So where's it going to end? Keep pulling, pushing it in. I have to put in more than the whole, if I lose the case, it will cost me. If you really start thinking about it, there's no more silly, crazy, obnoxious exercise than praying to God. Not only that, but I would go a step further and say to pray to God is an outright act of heresy. People think that by praying we are trying to change God's will. We are trying to change God's plans. That is obviously something which is absurd. When Scripture itself states quite categorically, Ani Hashem Loi Shinisi. I, God, I have not changed. I do not change. I never will change. If God wants you to be sick, God forbid, that doesn't sound fancy, an oxymoron. If God wants you to be sick, God forbid. Okay, you figure it out. Or poor, or this, or that, etc., etc. You can stand on your head and make somersaults forward, backward, sideways, I don't care how many times. If that's what God wants, nothing you do will ever change God's mind. And if you're in a certain condition, certain situation, that's obviously where you belong, where you're supposed to be. Don't try to circumvent the system. For one thing, you will not be able to. And for a second thing, it's a contradiction in terms. I'm teaching God how to run his business. So what then is prayer? And yet we have to pray every day. And the prayers are specifically formulated in such a way that everything I need, I have to ask for. What is the point of that? The simple answer that we pray, that we make brochas, for example, is to acknowledge in everything that we have, it's a blessing that comes from God. Okay? That I can understand. I thank you, God. Please continue bestowing your grace upon me. But changing things? The lineup, you ever notice in Shul, the lineup, when they make the Mishaberas for the sick people? I always wonder, but somebody, the Gabbai works for the HMO of the insurance company, trying to avoid all these payments. Let God take care of it. I mean, after all, he's the one who brought it about. Why should everybody else? Maybe somebody should tell Obama about this whole healthcare program. institute a national prayer day of Mishaberas for all the six. And saying, Tilim, it will solve a lot of problems, save a lot of money, no more deficit, and who knows what else. We do pray, essentially the simple answer is given to show that we are dependent on God, that we are not self-sufficient, independent entities. But good, that's enough if I acknowledge it. But why do I have to ask it? We are told, specify. And for that matter, you want a jackpot? Ask for it. No problem asking for it. But where's the logic? Where's the philosophy? The philosophy lies in a total misunderstanding what it is all about. The Hebrew word for prayer is Tefila. Tefila, actually, the literal translation of Tefila is not prayer. The real Hebrew word for prayer, the English word prayer, is bakasha. Bakasha means to seek, to ask, to request. That's what the English word prayer means. The Hebrew word tefillah means something altogether different. The word tefillah is a word which we are still trying to trace its grammatical root. Some trace its grammatical root to the word pilel, vayefalel pinchos, you have in Tilim, which literally means, it means it prays, but it also means literally he struggled, he battled. Then again, the word tefillah has also been traced to tofel. Tofel means to glue together, to join together. And both these translations come closer to what tefillah is all about than the Hebrew word prayer. Tefillah is approaching God. What do you do when you pray? You come to God, you have to be conscious. As the Talmud puts it, when you start standing prayer, most shuls have that on the Holy Ark up front, some at the entrance door. Da lifnei mi ata omet. Know before whom you stand. Prayer is not that you go through some kind of magical formula, abracadabra, this and say it, and now you can go home. Everything will take care of. No. Prayer is communication. Prayer is not communication, it's communion. Communion meaning joining with God. Tofel, become unified with it. That at that time, your mind, your heart, belongs to God exclusively. The Talmud asks in the Shema, we say, Ulofta b'chol vafrem, to serve Him with all your heart. Ezu avodah shebalei. What is this? How do you serve God with your heart? I can always serve God with your hand by putting stock into the pushka. You can serve God with your mouth, praising His songs. You can serve God by putting on tefillin and doing other things, lighting candles, and so forth. How do you serve Him from my heart? My heart is not active. And the Talmud says, that's prayer. Prayer is service of the heart. If the heart is not in there, there is no prayer. If it's just the articulation of the words, put on a tape recorder. I mean, the tape recorder, we have a tape recorder anyway for praying it, don't we? It was this fellow, the Amida, the Shemon Esrei, where you ask all these things. It takes a few minutes to say. And we are so used to saying it every day, 3 times, etc. And was this fellow who finished Shemon Esrei, and then the rabbi was over to him, Shalom Aleichem, how are you? Now the Hebrew greeting, Shalom Aleichem, you say to somebody whom you haven't seen at least 3 days. And Shalom Aleichem. What about good morning, good evening? Shalom Aleichem, wow, I haven't seen you for a while. The rabbi, what's the Shalom Aleichem? You saw me last night from Mincha Ma'ariv. You saw me yesterday morning at Shachrit. You saw me the day before. What's the Shalom Aleichem? So he wants the Shalom Aleichem. You just finished Shemon Esrei. In the Amida, he was a businessman. You probably traveled to the fair in Seattle and then to the market in Sao Paulo, and then you were there in New York you were thinking about this. You travel all over the world during the time because your tape recorder is working. You don't even have to think anymore about the words that we utter in our prayers. So you just came back from a long trip. Shalom Aleichem. How are you doing? That's unfortunately how our prayers work most of the time. Because of habit, it becomes kind of an exercise, a rote exercise. We have done it and done it and done it and done it. It works automatically. I don't even have to think anymore. Just press the button. Oh, Shachis. Oh, it's over here. Okay, Shachis. Zoom, and my mind can go somewhere else. Mincha, over here. Okay, mind can go somewhere else. But that's not prayer. That's not prayer. Prayer means that your mind is in it. I'm talking to God. When I talk to you, I have to pay attention to you. And I have to pay attention to how you respond. And that's what prayer means. If there is no recognition, da lifnei mi atoimet, know before whom you stand, the consciousness, who are you talking to? Then what's the point of standing there? It's kind of, again, trying you think, going through some exercise of black magic. That's not what it's all about. So it's communion, unifying with God, attachment. The Kabbalists call prayer zivug, a marriage, a marital union between the soul and God who are now communicating. A marriage which has children. Who are the children of this zivug? The children of that are the consequences that come from prayer, which is not the results of that which you asked for. But having communed now with God, unified with God, I have a greater appreciation, a greater gratitude, and therefore the senses of fear and awe of God, love of God, etc., they become enhanced. These are the children of prayer. Prayer never changed God's mind. Prayer will never change God's mind. That's not what it's all about. You're wasting your time. And let me give you a story. There was a famous Jewish king, probably one of the most famous probably after King David. He was a great-great-grandson of King David. His name was Hezekiah. He was as pious a king as you can possibly imagine. He was also a prophet. Many of the biblical books were recorded by him. He was the first one to introduce such a thing as compulsory education. And not just for boys, compulsory education for boys and girls. His father was as wicked as he was good. His father brought idolatry into the country. Not just him, his grandfather also. And when he took over, he literally cleansed the whole country. And went so far as to have, as I said before, this compulsory education, of which they said that from Dan to Beersheba, from the northern boundaries all the way to the southern boundaries, you could not find a single boy or girl, talking even before Bar Mitzvah or Bas Mitzvah, that were not fully well-versed and erudite in all the laws, the complex laws of purity and impurity, which most scholarly rabbis haven't got a clue about. Couldn't find a single one. It was the perfect conditions. So much so, God wanted to make him Mashiach. He was supposed to be the Messiah. But for whatever reasons, it didn't work out. Mostly because of generation, whatever. One day, this king took very gravely ill. He had a cousin, just as famous as he. Pretty much the second greatest prophet in Judaism, after Moses. And that is Isaiah, Yeshayahu. And when King Hezekiah was gravely ill, Yeshayahu, his cousin, gets a message from God, go visit him. Visit him and tell him to pack his bags. He's moving on. His life is over. Okay? He goes to him, to the palace, visits him, and he says, my dear friend, I have a message for you from God. Your time is up. Get your house ready, set everything in order, so that you can leave with a calm mind. Hezekiah was shocked. He looks at him from his sickbed and he says, what are you talking about? You say my time is up? Impossible. I'm a prophet just like you. And I know with my prophetic spirit that my lifespan has another 15 years to go. So it's impossible. So Yeshayahu looks at him and says, you're right, your lifespan was supposed to run another 15 years. However, you messed up. You messed up, and therefore you lost 15 years. Pack up, this is it. Time has come. Me, messed up. After everything I did, went out of my way, out of my love and dedication and devotion to God, how can you say I messed up? He says, yes, you messed up. You're guilty of a very grave sin. What sin? What are you talking about? You have not fulfilled the very first mitzvah. Never mind the later mitzvahs you may have missed later on. Never got up to there. But the very first mitzvah in the Torah you did not fulfill. What's the very first mitzvah in the Torah? Huh? Pruavu. Be fruitful and multiply. Tell us. Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh. Oh, that's the first mitzvah given to the Jewish people as a nation. But the first mitzvah in the Torah overall for all mankind. Sorry. So you did not fulfill that. You never got married. She says, that's it? Of course I know I never got married. I intentionally avoided getting married. Why do you try to avoid getting married? He says, because I'm a prophet. And in my prophetic spirit, I foresaw that if I'm going to get married, I'm going to have children. You need to be a prophet for that, right? And if I'm going to have children, I foresaw with my prophetic spirit that my son, especially the oldest one, is going to be as wicked as I was good, or as wicked can be. He's going to turn everything I accomplished upside down and worse. I do not want to be responsible for producing a monster like that. That is going to lead the whole nation astray. Good reason. So Yeshayahu, the prophet, looks at him and says, is that so? Why do you mix into the mysterious ways and plans of God? None of your business. You got to do what you got to do. If the God says and Torah says you must get married and have children, you get married and have children. Kesara Sarah. It's not your problem. You just do what you have to do, try your best, make every effort. But trying to be a wise guy, smart aleck, circumvent the system. God knows how to handle himself. God doesn't need your help. And Hezekiah listens to him and says, you know, you got a point. You're right. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I'll get married. As a matter of fact, I have a good plan. You have a nice daughter. You're a saintly individual. So maybe your merit, joined with my merit, when I get married to your daughter, will make sure that the child is not going to be quite as bad. We'll have better genes than that. So Yeshayahu looks at him and says, sorry, my friend, it's too late. You don't get it, do you? God sent a message and said, game is up. Pack your bags. Go home. Now Hezekiah Godani says, look here, whatever you told me so far, everything fine and good. But then you now tell me game is up. It's over. It's finished. That you have no right to say. Because I have an unbroken chain of tradition going back to my ancestors. That even if they lead you to execution, and the sword to decapitate you is already on your neck, it's only a split second before it's going to cut off your head. Even at that last split moment, al yimna atzma min arachamim, do not give up hope. And he turned to the wall, he prayed, and suddenly, zap! Lightning of inspiration to the prophet Yeshayahu, tell him he has another 15 years. He got his other 15 years, he got married, he had children, he had a son, known as Menashe, who ruled the longest of all Jewish kings, 55 years, and was indeed as he had foreseen. Put an idol into the Holy of Holies of the temple. The whole works. But that's a different story. He was also a very interesting individual, this Menashe. Now, a very interesting story which is told in the Bible, in 2 places in the Bible, and elaborated with further details in the Talmud. What do we see in that story? That Hezekiah was born. Before Hezekiah was born, obviously there was already a determination of what is going to happen in his lifetime. He's going to live so and so many years. Then now he failed to get married, so a change of plans. 15 years deducted. Which means there's a change upstairs. He turns to the wall and prays. Okay, you get the 15 years back. I mean, what kind of God is this? A yo-yo. Going up and down. Yeah, okay, no? Yes, okay, yes. No? Okay, yes. It's the basic question that we asked before. What is the simple answer? The simple answer, God did not change his mind. Certainly not twice, not even once. On the part of God, nothing has changed. What did change? Hezekiah changed. The Hezekiah that was supposed to die, died. The Hezekiah that survived is a different Hezekiah. The one that died is the one that did not acknowledge, did not realize you don't play games, you don't try to circumvent the system. He now has this consciousness, now has this realization, he now has this knowledge, he now realizes how to go about it, even though it was perfect and everything else. But here was one thing missing. Now he got that missing link as well. That's a different person. That person can live. There are people who believe in fatalism. In Islam, they're very heavy into that. Fatalism means it's predetermined. If fatalism would be true, that everything is predetermined and you can't do anything about it, I have a way for you to make a lot of money very fast. Start selling tickets for people to watch you jump off the Empire State Building. Or, don't have to go that far, how many people can watch the thing? So do it here, right here in this hotel, you can have it. You stand against the wall, you say, I have somebody with a machine gun, you can put in the bullets and watch him shoot me. Who wants to come watch the show? And you will have a show not once, you can have a show, one show right after the other. How? Because you make a simple calculation. If it's my time to go, whether somebody shoots me with a machine gun or I lie in bed, I'm gone. If it's not my time to go, you can shoot as many machine guns, as many hand grenades, and as many missiles as you want. It's not going to happen because it's not my time to go. Makes sense? Otherwise, God didn't know beforehand. Am I going to show that God is ignorant? He doesn't know what I'm going to do? What's the answer to that? The answer is simple. Yes, God gives you, let's say, 120 years to live. But as God put that in your plan on your personal private program, your computer program, that program also contains a lot of qualifications. If at point A you're going to jump off the Empire State Building, you're going to drop dead right there and then. If somebody's going to shoot a gun at you at point B, you're going to drop dead right there and then. If you're going to lead a normal life with normal precautions and do everything the way you should be doing, you will live all the way from point A to point X. But in between, hey, that's built into the system. So Hezekiah was supposed to live X numbers of years. But if he's not going to do this, not going to do that, this may be shortened. Then again, just as there are ways to shortening life, there are also such things as lengthening life. There's such things as stockatatim and movis, we say. Charity saves from death and so forth. There's certain things which prolong life, give health and what have you. You do this and that, yes, we can possibly extend. There is a final point, obviously. But in between the first point and the last point, there are lots of potentials which are strictly, exclusively within our own hands. When the prophet Yeshayahu told him, you have to go, that's because he missed out on that. Now he accepted that. He has changed. He has become a different person. And then when he turned to the wall and he prayed, that makes you to a different person. The Talmud has a story. Not a story, a parable of a thief, a robber, a professional robber. Very religious person. And before he does a job to break into a nice mansion, what does he do? He goes to shul, he puts in some money to stock a pushka, he says some tilim, he gets down on his knees, oh Yerotzim Lefanecha, please God, make this a successful job. I should be able to get safely into the house, I find a lot of loot and get safely out of there. And I promise you at least 20%. Now that thief, he really sincerely believes in God. He really sincerely believes in the power of prayer. He really sincerely believes in divine providence. We need God's blessings for everything. And therefore, he appeals to God. He does all these actions. The only thing he doesn't think things through. The same God that you believe in also says, Lo ysiknav, you shall not steal. Yeah, but that's incidental, you know. Let's just deal with the main things. God is there, God is in charge. But that's what happens with prayer. Prayer is not meant, as I said before, to change God's mind. Prayer has one purpose, and that is to change ourselves. That is the communion, and that is the joining with God. The Hebrew word for praying is what? Anybody knows? Hitpa'el. Very strange word. I eat, ani ochel. I see, ani roeh. I walk, ani holech. When it comes, I pray, it's ani mitpalel. Mitpalel is what we call in grammar a Hitpa'el form, reflexive form. Not the active form of what I do. Like if I was to use the same form for eating, it's ani mitachel. Ani mitachel, what does that mean? I am being eaten. And yet, when it comes to prayer, that's exactly what we are saying. Ani mitpalel. Why? Because that's what prayer is all about. That's what prayer is all about. When you daven, when you pray, you're not speaking to God. You're speaking to yourself. Hitpa'el, reflexive. What does it mean, speaking to yourself? Like I said before I pray, I have to know, what am I doing? Standing before God. Know before whom you stand. God, the Almighty, the Creator, the Sustainer. Everything is in His power. Everything comes from Him. And nothing before Him. And you approach Him. Remember you took a loan out from the bank a few years ago? Mortgage, whatever? And after 2-3 payments, you just skipped. You disappeared. He's still looking for you. Would you have the nerve to still show up in the same branch with the same manager and ask for another loan? The moment he sees you, he said, just take a seat, sure, consider it. Goes to the other phone, 911, calls the police. Hey, come here, arrest him. Isn't that what we are doing with God? We're supposed to do A, B, C, D, E. We feel this, we feel that. And now we dare show up. I come to God and I say, God, please give me this. Please, God, need that. And God turns to me and says, I don't understand you. I told you thou shalt not steal, you steal. I told you you shall not cheat, you cheat. I told you to do this and that. How dare you show your face in front of me? Most of you drive cars. Ever been stopped by a cop on the highway? Yeah? What's the first thing the cop tells you? In modern times, in my days, it was good. Nowadays, it's no longer good. What do they do now? First thing they ask for? A license and registration. And once he gives you that, once you gave it to them, they wrote their ticket, and that was it, goodbye. What do you do today? They go back to the car, those idiots have those machines, I don't know if they should find some way to block them. And first thing they do, before they do anything else, tick, 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 who is this fellow? Maybe there are some outstanding tickets. Maybe the car is stolen, this and that. They have your whole record. Well, guess what happens up there? Where did they get this idea from? They copied it from heaven. Heaven have this big supercomputer. The moment you come knocking on the door, yeah, who is there? Who is knocking? Oh, it's me, young Yankel Schmerl. I came to ask for this and that. Just 1 minute, please. Driver's license registration, please. Tick, 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 tick. Oh, I have your whole record. You regret to the end of your life that you ever showed up at the door. Because once they find all these outstanding tickets, you have had it, finished. And there are lots of tickets. Lots of tickets, everyday tickets. But they never caught up to you. As a matter of fact, that is what they say, our sages tell us, and especially the mystics emphasize that, always daven with a minion. Always daven in shul with other people. Why? Because when you knock on the door by yourself, who is there? The Uncle Shmuel. Tick, tick, tick. Ha ha ha, gotcha. When you're down with a minion, you get lost in the crowd. Not just metaphorically, literally. Because what is a minion? A minion is not at least 10 times 1 people. A minion is a completely different reality. None of you are perfect. I'm not going to say anything about myself. But all your imperfections are different ones. You did, I don't want to tell them, but you did A and B, right? He never did A and B. On the other hand, he did C and D, which you never did. Then again, you have certain mitzvahs, which he never did. And he has certain mitzvahs, which you don't have. When we all stand together as one unit, you complement him and he complements you. As we are one unit, as the Zohar puts it, Bible of Jewish mysticism, quoting a verse in Shir HaShirim, Kuloch yofor ayosi umum einbach. Shir HaShirim is a song love, boy and girl serenading one another, but it's really a metaphor for the relationship between God and the people of Israel. And then the boy says to the girl, God saying to the people of Israel, Kuloch yofor ayosi, you're so beautiful, my beloved. I can't find a single defect, a single blemish in you. So the Zohar interprets it this way. Kuloch, putting commas differently. Kuloch, you're all together, you're whole. Yofor ayosi, my beloved, you're beautiful. Mum einboch, I can't find a single blemish in you. Meaning that kuloch, when we're all together, everyone complements everybody else. Your sins are made up by the mitzvahs of the other person. His sins are made up by your mitzvahs. That's the idea of dominating dominion. That's what I meant, getting lost in the crowd. But when you're on your own, but that's what a person should think when he prays. When he prays, therefore, he should think, how dare I show up before God? I did this wrong, I did that wrong. How can I ask God for a favor if I dare 5 minutes ago spat in his face, stepped on his toes, and now come, oh God, could you please do me a favor, give me this and give me that? Doesn't work that way, even on our human mind. So therefore, the time of prayer becomes a time of introspection, becomes a time of self-judgment, Hitpa'el, pilel, where I realize, who am I? How dare I show my face before God? And then as I realize that, then I say, I better change first. So at the very least, I'm sorry for what I did, and I undertake not to do so again. Please, God, can I have this? Now God says, no problem. No problem. But if you don't have this self-judgment, there's something wrong there. Tefillah is synonymous, literally, with tshuva. Every act of prayer is supposed to be an act of teshuvah, to change me. And especially God sometimes turns around to me and says, look here, you come to me and you have this request. Very nice. And I've no problem giving it to you. I've only one question for you. If roles were reversed and I were to come and ask you for a favor, you would be God. Would you give it to me? What would be my response? Of course. What have I got to lose? God has an unlimited supply. Whatever he gives everything away. He hasn't given away anything because he still has more than that. They're like the fellow who comes to God, I hear it says in Tehillim, Ki elef shoni benecho ki mesman, 1,000 years in your eyes are like yesterday. Time means nothing to you. Numbers mean nothing to you. Is that true? Yes, that's true. So it is a zillion or trillion or one. It's all the same to you. Yes, correct. In that case, God, all I ask for is just one of your pennies. Penny to God is a trillion to us. God says, sure, no problem. Just wait 1 second. If you judge things, they have to be, I've taken everything in context. So here God says, if the roles would be reversed, would you do it? And I say, of course I would. Then God turns around and says, guess what? Roles are reversed every day, every moment. You are in the seat and the position of God all the time. People come and ask you for a favor. If you know them, maybe you consider it. Don't know them? Who are you? I don't know you. I don't know you anything. Get lost. So people come and ask you, and people want you to be nice to them, and you refuse to do so, and now you have the nerve to show up before me and ask me to be nice to you, to smile at you, to say hello and good morning to you, and to give you this and to give you that. For what? I don't owe you anything. If you're not prepared to do it with others, why should I be prepared to do you? As a matter of fact, the Baal Shem Tov Hasidus says that the way you relate to other people, you sit in judgment over yourself. In heaven, they will never judge you. Don't be afraid. You can do the worst things under the sun. Not now, no, after 120 years, they will not judge you. They'll let you get away with everything. But when you come up there, they're going to come to you, oh, my friend, Shalom Aleichem, welcome, we have been nice waiting for you. It's so good to see you here. Would you mind helping us out a little bit? Sure, why not? Straight in Gan Eden. And they point me right away to the jury, judge, jury, the whole thing. Very, thank you, sure. Okay, we know there's so many people that come up here all the time. All the angels are very busy. Would you mind to take over a few files? No problem, sure, great. And they give you a file, all it has is a number on it, and then you start reading the file. This fellow did this, and he did that, and did that. Oh boy, throw the book at him. One-way ticket to the barbecue. Okay, thank you very much. While you look at the next file, let's take this one and put it through the system. And before they take the system, say, would you please take off now this sticker with the number? And you take off the sticker with the number, and under the sticker is a name. Whose name? Exactly. It's your name. They will always ask you to judge yourself, but you will never know that you're judging yourself. In somebody else, it's so easy to recognize every fault and defect and every mistake and so forth. And you're so judgmental. What a lowlife. What a good for nothing. What a this and that, etc., etc. Guess what? Whenever you look at another person, you are looking into a mirror. If you would not have the same defects that you see in the other person, you would never have discovered them in the other person. In the other person, you only see a reflection of yourself. And that is what God is telling us. If you would be God, what would you do? You are God every day. When we start our prayers in the morning, the very beginning, there's a very important line taken from the Bible. Very important line, more than anything. Which says, Lo yaltzitkoseinu anachnu mapilim dachanuneinu. We do not cast our requests and whatever we ask for because we are so good and so righteous. Ki al rachamecha horabim. When I come before you, God, I'm asking for gratuitous kindness. Not that you owe me anything. Or you can come and give a bill to God. Every mitzvah you perform, you deserve. The smallest mitzvah. So at the end of the day, yes, you can submit a bill and say, God, look here. Today I put on tefillin. Today I gave a nickel to the vagrant fellow there, over there, etc., etc. That's tzedakah. God says, yes, I owe you. And how much is the bill for? $100,000? Guess what? No, that mitzvah is worth much more. I owe you at least $10 million for that. Oh, sure, I'm not going to argue. Thank you very much. But then God says, thank you very much. I'm going to pay you for every good deed that you have done. But since you have now come to the point that you submit a bill, then let's get our accounts straightened out already completely. So this is your bill. Let me give you my bill. And once God exchanges bills with us, guess what? It's not worth it. That's why when we start our prayers, we say, no bills. No bills. Loyal tzidkasenu, not because you are so righteous and so good. But I'm relying on your pure, gratuitous kindness. If I want God's kindness, then God says to me, how about you showing some kindness? You have this old neighbor as nobody else. You make the day by just smiling at them. Hi. That's all you have to do. Just a tiny little smile. 2 letters, 1 sound. Hi. For them, it may mean the difference for the whole day, for everything. Was it this homeless woman that I found last week, 2 weeks ago? In the city here, yeah. And after she died, there was a will. She left $200,000. $100,000 for the Hebrew University and one for somebody who saw there. So I gave her a job, drive my car and whenever it's before it gets a parking ticket. I gave her a bed to sleep on. Left $100,000 in there. Nothing but big deal. But it made her life, it gave her some content, it gave her some purpose, it gave her something to live for. That's something to do. She didn't need to, okay, so you have the complexes of all these various homeless people who have the money and so forth. But you have no idea how one single action, one single movement, one single expression in your face can literally change the whole life of another person. For good or the other way around. And that's what God is saying to us. That's what prayer is all about. God says, you are God! You are in my position. You come and ask me for certain things and to relate to you in certain ways. How about you? That's mispalel, reflexive, talking to yourself. Prayer is not about changing God. Prayer is about changing one thing and one thing only, ourselves. And then all the theological problems fall by the side. God has never changed. God made you sick? Yes, you deserve to be sick. But that's that guy over there. The way he or she lived until now. Now they're buckling up. Now they're changing things. It's a different ballgame, different rules. God hasn't changed his mind. We're talking about a completely different person. That's what has to go through our minds of prayer. So prayer becomes another word for tshuva. Prayer is all about reflection, changing, and that's what it's all about. If it's not that, it's at best superstition. At best some kind of hocus pocus. And that's why we pray also 3 times a day. First thing in the morning, before you do anything else. Last thing of the day. You're finished with everything else. And then comes the smallest prayer of all, mincha. The smallest prayer and the one that's most neglected. And the one that in a sense is the most important. The Talmud says, be extremely, especially careful with mincha. What is so important about mincha? Mincha is the middle of the day, before sunset. Any time from afternoon till sunset. What is that time of the day? That's the time of the day when we are all involved in our business, in everything we're doing. Shachis is before I get involved. Ma'ariv is after I'm involved. Mincha is in the middle of the day. And then in the middle of the day, I tear myself away, even if it's only for 2 minutes. 1 short Asher and 1 short Shemona Esrei. Big deal. 2 minutes. But in the midst of everything, I tear myself away and acknowledge, yes, God, you exist. Yes, God, I exist, and I exist only by virtue of you. And whatever blessings I derive from being involved in all these business transactions, all these undertakings, whatever, it all comes from you. I acknowledge you. Thank you, God. That's mincha. So in a way, the most important prayer of all. Because that's what prayer is really all about. Consciousness, awareness, recognizing what it is.
Is it better to pray in a language you understand or in a language that maybe you don't?
Yes, better to pray in a language you understand than the Hebrew which you don't understand. The Hebrew has one advantage. The Hebrew is it's the sacred language. The prayers were arranged precisely there by our sages of old. They were arranged for us specifically to touch all bases that one should touch in prayer. But since prayer is essentially the service of the heart, and it can therefore be more meaningful to you to say it in English, in Hebrew, regardless what language you speak, whether you understand the Hebrew or you don't understand, you always have fulfilled your duty. But provided you have the general consciousness that I'm standing before God. The only part, even in Hebrew, you must be able to understand when you're saying it, is the first 2 verses of the Shema. If you did not understand the meaning of Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, and Baruch Shem Koed, you have not said the Shema. Because that's an affirmation of the faith. It's not simply some kind of a formula. So if you don't know what you're saying, you have not affirmed anything. But for the rest, as long as you have the consciousness, that is important. As long as you have the consciousness of what you're doing, I'm standing before God, I'm praying to God, I submit to God, and I expect God's blessings, that's good enough. If you pray in another language, you must understand every word you're saying. So in Hebrew, you get away without understanding. In another language, so if you can read French or Chinese or whatever, but you haven't got a clue what the words are, but you know, you learned the articulation of the words, you have not prayed. Well, in Hebrew, it does count as being prayed. So that's the only difference. But so then it's definitely better, yes.
So you had a wonderful case for dominating from men and women. So what about women who don't need that?
Well, like you said, they don't need it. There's one way, not everybody has the ability to dominate a minion. And therefore, the one way that we get around that, I didn't want to spell it out, because then people have an excuse not to go with minion. And I don't want to give them that excuse. Is that for the same reason our davening is all made in plural form. That we hardly ever express anything with very few exceptions. Very few. You can count them on a hand. The davening is especially always done in plural form. Always, please bless us, heal us, give us, look after us. It's us. So that we always kind of compounding ourselves with the rest of the community. that I'm not standing there exposing myself as an individual. Excellent question on the other hand, but it's something which I try to avoid because, okay, in that case I can take $10 down as a minion. So I should still, because still the minion, besides the power of community, the power of a mass, a public prayer is something which God always accepts, kind of. Not only because each one makes up for the other, but it's also something, even you see psychologically, when a whole group of people get involved in a certain undertaking, there's a certain electricity that affects everybody in it, as opposed to a person doing something individually. So therefore, there's still something in context of communal prayer. Or the women who go to shul, for that matter, it's also fine. Yes?
If prayer is all about introspection and changing yourself, where's the benefit in praying for somebody else?
Good question. If prayer is all about changing yourself, then what's the point of making Mishbeach? What's the point of praying for somebody else and so forth? The answer here is twofold. Number one, we all are an organism. None of us is an island unto himself in isolation. So I'm connected with you and you're connected with me. Whether you like it or not, you're stuck with me. But I'm stuck with you too. In our prayers, for example, you have the confession of sin. The confession of sin, especially on Yom Kippur, goes into whole long lists. For every letter in the Aleph base, there are two things mentioned. And Rabbi Isaac Luria, the major figure in Jewish mysticism, who lived in the 16th century, was once asked, how come you recite that confession of sin? It mentions there some really crude things. I mean, there are some things which to this day I don't know exactly what they refer to, what you're talking about. And I don't want to find out too much because, once you get nosy and so forth, you want to experiment a little bit and who knows what slippery slope. Here you have this person who is regarded as a great saint, and he recites Yom Kippur, talk about the sin which are committed doing this, and the sin committed this, doing this, etc., etc., etc. Either he's a hypocrite, everybody thinks he's a great saint, secretly he does all these things, or alternatively he's a liar. He says, forgive me, I've committed this sin, that sin, and in fact he has never committed that sin. And he answered the following, he says, no, I may not have done any of these things. But insofar that I'm part of the Jewish nation, I'm bound up with every Jew. There may be a Jew out in Timbuktu and never even heard of him, or don't know that he exists. I don't even know the place where he is. And he has committed any of these acts, I too am accountable. Kol Yisrael arevim ze bozeh. All Jews are accountable one for another. And as the Maggid Masrich would interpret that, mu'urovim ze bozeh. All Jews are intermingled with one and the other. You're a reasonable person, intelligent person, and the most important thing for you is obviously your head, your brain. And I don't think you, like me, you probably don't care too much about your toenails. And when you sit there and meditate and contemplate on the most important things in life, and I sneak up from behind you, and I start playing around with your toes and your toenails, sticking some pins under the toenails and other things. How long do you think you are able to concentrate? You see, what do I care what I do down there? That's down there. I'm up there. But guess what? The down there with the up there are directly linked. So regardless who you are, what you are, where you are, all of us are linked with one another. And whatever any one Jew does anywhere in this world affects literally every other Jew wherever he may be. That's the root of the Lubavitch, the Chabad outreach work, all the Chabad verses. Why should the Rebbe sit in New York and have no other worries but somebody out in Timbuktu or in Australia or in who knows, the Himalayas is going on there? It's not my worry. Let me study Torah, let me do mitzvahs, let me get involved in this and that. Guess what? No, you can't just sit and stay and study Torah and do mitzvahs. If he's out there and he has committed this or that sin, or he's lacking in this and that, then Rabbi Isaac Luria or the Lubavitch Rebbe, whoever it is, and certainly each and every one of us, we have to go, I've committed this sin. I don't even know what the sin is. But I've committed that sin vicariously through that other person. If that works negatively, it works positively as well. Moreover, insofar that I show concern for that other person by reciting a prayer and giving tzedakah for that other person. What happens in effect is that that other person, for whatever reason, has affected me in this and that way, and becomes the cause of my prayer or my good deeds. And becoming the cause of that, that person now gets credit for it. The same as you have, take another example, the recital of Kaddish for the dead. The recital of Kaddish or Yizkar for the dead is supposed to help the soul clean up and get higher and higher. What is it's a soul? Soul is out there, I'm down here. Because that soul, that neshama, is directly responsible for my going to shul and my saying Kaddish. And for my saying Kaddish in such a way that there are dozens of people who will answer Omein and Yehei Shmei Rabbo, which means there's a whole ripple effect of mitzvahs that came about. Why? Because that person died and that person is now in the other world, and it's a person that I care about. So that person now becomes directly responsible for all these good deeds. It's as if that person is doing these good deeds themselves. So here likewise when you pray for somebody. Yes?
Why does it seem like one of the biggest obstacles to prayer from the heart is the length of prayer itself?
The length of prayer should not be an obstacle. On the contrary, the length of prayer is an obstacle for people who just want to go through the motions and get it over and done with. And then, oh my goodness, I have to say this too, and I have to say this too. Sure, there must be a shortcut. As a matter of fact, I won't tell you, but there are shortcuts. Certainly for you're in a rush or in an emergency. The Talmud has an expression, a person should pray all day. In prayer, there's a parable of the Baal Shem Tov. There was this king who was a very happy frame of mind, and he made a proclamation to his kingdom. Anybody of the country can come to the palace and ask for anything they want, and they get it. Everybody came. These asked for this office, that office, diamonds, jewels, this, that, wealth, rich. Everybody asked. Then there was one man, and he comes to the king and says, all these things that everybody asks for, these are all transient things, here today, gone tomorrow. I have only one request that I want from you. Lifnei Hashem yishpach sichoi. I want to be able to speak to you for a few minutes each day. Just to be with you for each day. An opportunity like this, that I can enter the palace of the king, see the king, speak to the king, have the king speak to me. Wow! That's all I asked for. No, he gave everybody what they asked for. This particular individual, not only did he get offices, this showed that he cares about the king. He cares about being in the presence of the king, that is communication with the king. So he gave orders to his staff, whenever he comes, whenever he leaves, take him past my treasury, and whatever he wants to take with, let him take with him. Because obviously, he's not here just to get what he can get out of me. But he really cares about me. And that's how Baal Shem Tov interpreted the verse in Tehillim. It says, Tefila le'oni, Lifnei Hashem yishpach sichoi. The prayer of the poor who wants to just ask for one thing, to utter and pour forth his speech before the king. That's what prayer is. Prayer is not about getting things. Prayer is, like I said, about changing ourselves. Prayer is about the consciousness. When you have this consciousness, that I have this communion, I'm talking here the ultimate experience, what we call religious experience. Then you don't look at the clock. Yes, you realize we live in a world of reality. 9 o'clock I have to be in the office. And if I don't have my cup of coffee, then I won't function there. So you have to set your clock, obviously, in that context. But that should not be then what do you care more for. Do you sleep now half an hour extra and zoom, the express train? Or do you get up half an hour earlier so I can spend more time on it? So it's not the length of the prayer. It's like everything else in prayer, it's the attitude to prayer.
Prayers, the literal effect, the powerful communal prayers can have on the outcome of some sick people.
Yes. We are not talking about religious context. There have been scientific studies. Yes, I know. I've spoken for a medical society once on that. But they took it from a simply secular point of view. And they made a study of praying for people that you know. The patient knows that you have been praying for them. And as well as praying for people that they had no clue that you're praying for them. And show me so. But I'm not, to be frankly, from a religious point of view, I have no problem with it. But I'm not really convinced from all the data because it's very difficult to really. Was it the Bird Hospital? I forgot what it's called. Or the doctor was called Bird. There were several, especially in Texas and in the South. Several. They've been written up in a number of medical journals. I've seen that. Yes, but so far the evidence seems to be definitely indicative that prayer is effective. One can ask the question: how can prayer be effective if you don't know the person, you never heard of them? For that matter, maybe of a different religion, and the patient doesn't know that you're praying for them. But still, in context of what I told that lady there, that would be understandable as well.
But wouldn't it be considered as a change in the God's will, kind of?
No. It's you have accrued merit for that other person by the good deeds that that person becomes accountable for, and therefore that becomes. Before she was a person that had a credit line of $1,000. Because of the good deeds that she brought, the light she brought into this world, by you praying for her and doing all these other things, her credit line has now jumped up to $10,000. She may not even be aware of it, but the fact remains the same. So there's no change in God, there's a change in her. As a change of her, it's a different ballgame.